We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. This is Bettina Lawton, your host, and we have a different kind of show for you tonight. This show is for all the business people who said on January 1st, this is going to be my best year ever. I'm really going to get out there. I'm going to be selling. I'm going to be getting new clients in. I'm going to make major money this year. And now we find ourselves at the end of the first quarter, and you're looking at your results and saying, gosh, what happened? Because it's no better than last year, or it's worse than last year, or it's not as good as I wanted it to be. So that's what we are going to talk about tonight, is how do you get more out of your business? How do you make those sales? How do you upgrade your sales strategy for today's marketplace? So we have with us tonight Ken Smith. Ken is with Sandler Training, and he's got some very interesting ideas on how to improve your sales, improve your performance. So we're going to go to Ken and introduce him now, and you're going to have to tell us first off, what is Sandler Training?
Okay, first of all, great to be here tonight, Bettina. Sandler Training is the world's largest provider of sales, leadership, management, and customer service training. We've been in business now for about 40 years, and we deliver our training in a variety of different formats. That is a model, however, that always provides what we believe to be lasting performance improvement.
Okay, and how long have you actually been with Sandler Training?
I have been responsible for the operations of Sandler here in the Washington metropolitan area now for the past 15 years.
Wow, okay, so you're actually good at this stuff. This isn't something you just decided to do?
We would like to think after that number of years we've learned a few things along the way, but I've been very fortunate, very blessed to work with a lot of business owners in this region who have a business where they've got to go out and sell, a lot of top performing sales professionals, and as well as a lot of folks who maybe didn't necessarily see themselves as selling professionals. They began a business because of some amount of professional or technical expertise, maybe not recognizing that it didn't ultimately matter about what they were capable of delivering, but if they were really going to grow their client base, it really comes down to what they're capable of selling.
Well, that's something that I know as a lawyer. Lawyers are always like, oh, we don't sell, and then it comes down to, well, you got to get clients. It used to be somebody came, a big institution came, it was your client, and it stayed forever. And that's not the paradigm anymore. So people have to learn how to get comfortable selling. So I think it's an excellent kind of business, and it's got to be a great business for you because you've got so many people out there who are now starting their own businesses who perhaps before had marketing departments who could do this, or somebody else would sell and they would do the actual work. So this must be a terrific time for you.
It is, and as the economy hopefully continues a recovery, more people will be out there on a day-to-day basis trying to grow their businesses, and of course having to embrace new strategies. Some of those I want to talk about tonight.
Now why do people need new strategies? Isn't selling just selling? I mean, once you figure it out, you're good to go.
Well,
right?
it's a great question. I think we go back a few years, pre-2008, when the marketplace was really robust, the phone was ringing. People that had to sell, maybe for the most part, were more in a demand fulfillment role, not a demand creation role. And now things have changed a bit. So as the economy continues to recover, many are still finding that their marketplace is not what it once was. The other part too is because of that, many of those who would consider themselves as selling professionals, maybe they haven't really altered their prospecting strategies, their sales models. So consequently, we're now in this marketplace where I know those that I work with share with me all the time that prospects take longer to make decisions than ever before, that there's now more downward pressure on prices and fees, that there's more competition, and that doing nothing at all at decision time is maybe now more common than ever before.
Right. Now I have heard that myself. Well, let's talk about some strategies, because you've got some slides, and let's see if we can get it to work. Because I saw this, and your first strategy is stop educating your prospects. And what does that mean? I mean, that's kind of an unusual way to try and sell something.
Well, most everyone that sells in their profession believes that they've got to educate their prospects. They've got to educate their prospects about how they're different. They've got to educate their prospects about their value proposition. They got to educate the prospect about the value that they bring over and above the competition. They got to educate the prospect about their experiences and their certifications, and it goes on. And of course, that's industry and market dependent or market specific. But I think what many fail to realize is we begin to educate our prospects in a selling role. Ultimately, what that does is it just lengthens the sales cycles, it invites competition, and it ends up putting downward pressure on our pricing. And maybe I can try to give you an example that the listeners out there might be able to get their head around a little bit. I live in a home where last year I made the decision that I wanted to replace the windows. Nice home, but the windows were terrible. So this was a place where the builder really cut corners. And the windows, you couldn't raise them. And I'm very fortunate, my family also, that none of us have allergies. So in the spring and the fall, we like to raise the windows and have some fresh air. And so the windows being very difficult to raise, they were in a wooden frame, wooden windows, and I would literally have to take my fist and bang around the window frame in order to loose it up. And then I could raise a window, and then there was a storm window, an aluminum frame on the other side, and I had to wrestle with that in order to get it up as well. After I put my fist through a couple of window panes, and I have scars to show for that, I resorted to taking a block of wood, and I would to loosen up the window, and would get the window up. The other problem with the windows is they just terrible insulation, and so for those reasons I was ready. My wife and I decided we were going to replace the windows. I had a strong referral from one of my clients to someone who does windows, and so I invited the guy over. And right or wrong, I'm a decision maker. I am not going to spend a lot of time shopping for these windows. My checkbook's in my back pocket, so I'm pretty much ready. I'm ready to go. But when the guy came over, he was just adamant about educating us about windows. My wife was with me. He began to talk. He wanted to make sure that we understood our factors. To this date, I don't know what those are. He wanted to extol the virtues of triple pane versus double pane. He wanted to talk about wood versus composite versus plastic, and on and on and on he went. And he just really wanted to make sure that we understood everything we possibly could about windows. When it was all said and done, my wife looked at me and she said, "We're not buying these today. There's no way we can buy these windows. Whoa. You got to know a lot about windows. Right? We've got to talk to some other people before we do this." And she was right. And of course, we did talk to some other folks. I didn't end up buying these windows from that guy, but because of what I do in my profession, I felt an obligation to him. So I picked up the phone and called him and explained to him that we had gone with someone else for the windows. Now, do you think I said to him, "Hey dude, we didn't buy the windows from you because you overeducated us"? Right? So of course not. And I gave him some flimsy excuse like salespeople are accustomed to hearing. We felt more comfortable with someone else, someone had a better price, or whatever. Someone could give us better delivery. But here is the message, and the point I'm trying to make is that in this situation, all he had to do was come over and say, "What is it that you don't like about the windows?" I'd have told him. He could have then asked me, "Hey, what is it that you're looking to invest? What do you have that you're willing and able to pay for windows?" I would have educated him about that as well. So I would have gladly educated him if in turn he would have just told me how he could help me. His role would have only been to say, "Here's a window for you," done, over. It would have been, the sale would have been made. So what happens is that when people are out there selling and their efforts to educate prospects, this is oftentimes what occurs. In today's marketplace, prospects want to know more. They're trying to get as much information as they can. So oftentimes, again, those who are selling, educating their prospects when in fact prospects should be educating them. So it's important, it's crucial in today's business climate, I believe, that prospects do educate those who sell. Right out of the gate, someone who's selling should be saying, "Hey, why would you even want to consider a product or a service like this at that time?" And also, if you don't purchase a product or service like this, What will be the end result? What are going to be the consequences? If you don't solve this problem, what will happen to you? So this is what will allow selling professionals not only to decrease their sales cycles and to more effectively qualify prospects, but also to avoid spending measurable time with those and lengthening their sales cycles and then ending up maybe with nothing to show for it.
So you really are suggesting, instead of going through this whole big educational thing, that you find out what's sort of driving the decision by the person who wants to buy. Presumably, if you're talking to them, they want to buy something from somebody. And so it's that question you were saying about what's that problem you want to fix? And that should be the approach for the salesperson, is to get the other person talking as opposed to just reciting all of their product.
Sure, and most of those who sell, if they've been trained, they're trained to sell features and benefits and to educate, or at least they've been conditioned to believe this is what they should be doing. But again, prospects are great if we just ask the right questions. They will indeed tell us exactly what we must do to sell them, and the only way we'll be able to get that information is to let prospects educate us. We might have to help them with that. We might have to have a specific strategy for making sure that that does occur. But stop educating your prospects, or those of you who sell. The time comes where, of course, you have to fulfill, but that should be a limited amount of time in today's market.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense, because there is, in my profession, because I do trust and estates work as a lawyer, it's a hard topic to discuss anyway, because you're dealing with what happens if you're disabled, or what happens after you die, or, as I like to talk about people, you know, what do you want your life to say for you when you can't say it for yourself? But most people don't know the inner mechanics. So that concept that you had, that you said of, so if you don't do this, if you don't make the purchase, if we don't go forward, what happens to you? What's going to happen? Is a good approach to get people to sort of recognize there's a real reason to do this, to buy whatever it is.
Sure, and it's interesting. If prospects want to be heard, and more than anything else, they want those who sell to be sensitive to their needs and wants and their problems. But what's ironic about that is when someone goes to visit with the prospect for the first time, or they're on the phone, and that dynamic, what the prospect begins to do is ask questions. Can you tell me about why you're doing it? Can you tell me about why I should consider you? And this is what seduces selling professionals into the trap that we've been established.
Okay. Well, we are going to be taking our break, and when we come back, we've got some more strategies that Ken Smith is going to talk to us about. So we want you to stay with us, and we will be right back after this break.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer, no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty. But one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school and know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, the host of Inside Scoop, and tonight we have with us Ken Smith. He is with Sandler Training, and we are talking about how to get your business on track for the last 3 quarters of the year, assuming maybe your New Year's resolutions haven't quite kept up with what your expectations are. So when we left, we were talking about one strategy, which was to not over-educate people, which is tough. But the next strategy that you suggested, Ken, is even more counterintuitive, which is to ask tougher questions. And so asking tougher questions is another strategy to actually increase your business?
Sure.
How does that work?
Well, many selling professionals have a long cycle in order to be able to sell a prospect. And so what that means is a lot of them have to end up jumping through a lot of hoops in order to make business happen. So many, maybe there's a lot of time and effort put forth in putting together a presentation, you know, the dog and pony show, or to prepare a demo, and then to rehearse, and maybe to do research in order to put together a large proposal, or maybe just the time and effort to put together a quote if it's a lot of detail and a lot of different items that need to be detailed for the prospect. Putting together a reference list, putting together the right pieces of a portfolio in order to make the presentation so that a prospect might be able to get the best sense of what the business or their solution might be all about. But here's what I think is a big problem, is that we know in this marketplace that we have hyper-cautious prospects. They're not buying as quickly. They're considering more alternatives. And many of them are just doing nothing. You know, they're postponing acquisitions or purchases. And maybe those are budget constraints, maybe it's just, you know, fear. But because everyone jumps through these hoops, too often they have nothing to show for that. And when they do provide, say, the proposal or the quote, in many cases, they might not know who the competition is. And certainly in my dealings with those who sell, I oftentimes hear, oh, no, we always ask that question. And of course, my response is, well, do they tell you? Do they respond? Do they readily share that information? And sometimes they feel like they're arm wrestling. But that's information that those who sell deserve. Also, it's not just finding out what alternatives a prospect might be considering, but are there predispositions? I mean, is someone predisposed to doing business with one of those competitors already? Are they really leaning towards staying with the incumbent, or who's been providing the service in the past? And these are the types of questions that many selling professionals just fail to ask.
But do they actually get the real answer? If somebody is just out there because they've got to say, I solicited 3 people, but I'm really going to stay with the incumbent, are they actually going to be honest about it?
Well, I believe that comes down to how one asks the questions and how they ultimately manage the prospect's expectations and build the necessary level of rapport and get the trust and the respect that they deserve as selling professionals. So many are so eager to provide that proposal, to do the dog and pony show, and so consequently, they're so focused on that, they don't get the information that they deserve to determine if someone is really a prospect. And they may jump through all those hoops, and not only might they not know what alternatives a prospect is considering or who they might be predisposed to, but it might also be that they don't know what the prospect is really willing and able to invest. So oftentimes the budget question is a one-act, you know, a one-question act. And so maybe there's a conversation that goes something like this, well, what's your budget? And the prospect says, well, you know, we might be able to make $20,000 available. Or maybe the prospect says, well, what are we looking at as far as cost here? And the salesperson says, well, maybe 20,000, and then the prospect makes her cringe, makes her move, oh, that's a lot more than what we wanted to invest, but can we have a proposal anyway? And so, unfortunately, many of those who sell fall into that trap, and so they really don't know what a prospect is willing and able to invest. Also, other tougher questions are around who's going to be involved in the decision ultimately, who's going to influence that decision. When or by when do you need to make a decision? When or by when do you need a solution? When or by when do you want to start the project? I mean, again, that depends upon what type of solution one might be actually selling. But those who sell, unfortunately, many do not recognize the rights that they have to ask these tougher questions.
Okay. Now the other thing, which is sort of the flip side of this, because your other sort of strategy that you were talking about is don't be afraid to tick people off.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I always thought of selling people as schmoozers, that you got, you know, ticking people off is not what you do, because if you do that, they won't buy from you. I mean, that's kind of the usual perspective, isn't it?
Well, and it's of course the two strategies or the two thoughts here are tied together. Most everyone who sells at some level is burdened by this need for approval, this need for acceptance, the need to be liked. And you know, that in itself, when we look at need for approval, is interesting. And I say that because, first of all, if you go to any psychological self-help book on the bookshelf today, you're likely going to find somewhere in that book 15 to 20 pages that are dedicated to this concept of need for approval. I find that interesting because it's not a psychological problem, at least for the vast majority of people. It really is one of the norms of our society in a sense. You know, social studies bear this out, that here in the North American culture, as much or more so than any culture in the world, we teach our children at a very early age the importance of being liked, making friends with everyone, not rocking the boat, getting along well with everyone. And I don't, and certainly there's nothing wrong with that. I believe that's probably why we have one of the most gregarious societies in the world. But what happens is everyone takes this into their adult life. And what profession would you guess that most of those who have the greatest need for approval tend to gravitate towards, besides politics?
Yeah, that would be the top one.
Right. So fortunately, a lot of those people do gravitate towards sales, and so when they're there trying to make business happen, this becomes the uninvited guest. And so the ability to ask tough questions, to get the information that someone deserves, as I referenced a moment ago, a paralysis of sorts sets in because the prospect likes them. And they tend to focus on those things. I like you, I'm impressed with your company, you know your stuff. So it really gets in the way, and in this marketplace today, I believe that those who sell, they got to be able to ask those tough questions. They got to let go of those emotional factors. After all, no one invited them over because they wanted to make a friend, right?
Well, there is that, and that's the kind of thing that I would find very difficult to be involved in any kind of real day in and day out kind of selling, because rejection is just that's a very difficult thing for most people to handle.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I have the opportunity to work with a lot of top performers, and these are people, you know, I oftentimes hear on need for approval, fear of rejection. You know, not me, I'm bulletproof. And you know, those oftentimes are the very people, and I know this because of how I work with them in such a close way, but those are the people that when they have this great prospect, or so they thought, and the prospect tells them that they're going to give the business to the competition, they're blown away. I mean, whether it's for 5 minutes or 5 days, it has an impact on their ability to immediately turn around and try to make something else happen. But the need for approval has a number of different manifestations. And one of those, and this may help our listeners out there, let's pretend for a moment that we have a salesperson named Tom. Tom has a prospect, and Tom has spent some amount of time with that prospect. And the prospect has shared with Tom that it has this need, they've got to have a solution that if they don't solve, let's call it some operational problem, then it's going to end up costing them a lot of money. And the prospect has money for the solution and must do something, and the budget, if you will, that the prospect has, Tom and his company can provide a solution within that. So what has occurred, that's a backdrop. The prospect has indicated to Tom now that he's likely to give the business to him. One day Tom gets a phone call and the prospect says, hey look Tom, I got some questions here, got to get these things up on the table, I'm pretty much ready to roll. So what's Tom thinking?
Tom thinking it's good to go.
I got one, right?
Right.
So Tom goes and visits with the prospect, and the prospect begins to ask all of the questions rapid fire. And Tom thinks he's doing a great job of answering the questions because the prospect is giving him every indication that he's doing so. And certainly for those of you out there that sell, you know what I'm speaking of. Prospects ask a question. Before you can finish the answer, the prospect is asking the next question. And at the end of all this, the prospect says to Tom, you know, Tom, we really like you. And I got to tell you, you really know your stuff. You've helped us understand some things we need in a solution like this that we would have never been able to figure out on our own. And I'm really impressed with your company and the references. They're glowing, right?
This is not sounding good.
So what is Tom's heart doing? Right,
Yeah.
one of these.
Yeah.
And then the prospect pulls this on him, says, but you know, Tom, this is a big decision. Let me think about it a couple more days and I'll get back to you, right? I think Tom has two choices here. The first one, thank the prospect for all the nice things he just said. Get a decision anyway. I'm not saying take him to the mat and twist his arm and get him to buy. I'm saying help the prospect make a decision in a nurturing and a professional way. It's decision time, right? The other option is that Tom can thank the prospect for all the nice things he just said, make some superficial attempt to try to figure out why he wants to think it over, but then grant the prospect his wish anyway. Now, if Tom is burdened at some level by this need for approval and wanting to be liked, the first option is not an option for him. He can't possibly do that.
That's right.
So what does he do? He grants a prospect his wish, and he ends up going into follow-up mode. Now, a couple things, for those who sell, they know this, but now, best case scenario, somewhere down the road, Tom ends up getting what he could have got today if he'd have just planted his feet. Worst case scenario, Tom doesn't get somewhere down the road what he could have gotten if he would have planted his feet. The other part of this one is that Tom's leaving the office now, and when Tom leaves the office, who's really thinking it over, right? I mean, prospects don't think things over, and this is just an excuse not to make a decision. His proposal gets slung to the pile of papers on the credenza sitting in the back of the prospect's office, and Tom's walking out to his car and he is dying, right? He is absolutely, has no idea what's going to happen next. So this was something, as we talk about this need for approval and how it burdens so many people that sell, in the, more robust times it was more forgiving. But now it just comes into play more than ever because those who sell must absolutely ask the tough questions, get the information that they deserve, and not allow this fear of rejection and this need for approval to get in the way.
Well, and that is sort of where the rubber meets the road. If you see somebody who is not willing to make that decision of how much do you push, because my inclination is to sort of say, oh, okay, and then out I go and I end up not having it. And it is sort of that balancing of how do you do
and I'm not
that.
talking about aggressive selling. I'm simply saying Tom should have managed the prospect's expectations in this example accordingly and planned and let the prospect know, and they should have come to an agreement that yes, some sort of decision would have been made.
All right, well, we're going to come back with some more strategies after the break, so stay with us.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. Sam's? No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done.
D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice, we'll allow it. All right, Ed. What are those?
Government surplus cars for auction.
You posted those online last time.
No, you did.
I'm posting them online this time.
For all your government information, firstgov.gov.
Oh, what have we got here? Sometimes you feel tired. You can't seem to lose those extra pounds off your midsection. And your joints hurt when you take the stairs. Well, you're getting older. But I'm happy to say that there's some simple things we can do to keep you happy and healthy for years to come. We can also lower your risk for some serious diseases the older population is often subject to. Proper nutrition is more important than ever. Your body has changed, not as many treats. A basic exercise plan, lots of walks and fresh air, and most importantly, come and see me for twice-yearly checkups to help ensure the best possible quality of life. Now, how does that sound? Good boy.
Improve the quality of life for your elderly pet. Schedule twice yearly checkups that include preventive care and regular lab work. A message from the veterinary members of the American Animal Hospital Association.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, the host of Inside Scoop, and my guest today is Ken Smith, and we are talking about upgrading your sales strategies for today's marketplace. And we're going to talk about something that Ken calls move at the speed of discomfort. I have no idea what that is, but I don't like discomfort, Ken. And so you're really going to have to do a sales job on me now to make sure that I'm willing to do this one. So tell us about this, move at the speed of discomfort.
Sure. During the robust market conditions that we had up until 2008, those who were selling in their profession built comfort zones around what they were doing. So they became comfortable with not only what they were doing, but what they were saying and what they were asking and what they were hearing. As human beings, we all strive for comfort, right? And in business, that can be a killer, and particularly when it comes time for us to change. I am no different than a lot of the listeners out there tonight. If they're selling professionals or business owners, I mean, I'm out there like they are. I obviously do a lot of speaking. I get in front of groups, but I also go to business luncheons and CEO breakfast, and I end up talking to a lot of business owners and selling professionals. And I meet these folks, and we end up talking about their business and selling. And if we end up having straight talk, and we're talking directly, then I hear a lot of the things that I'm sure that they are hearing when people talk about their business and what they're experiencing and this economic recovery in the marketplace that they have. And so I hear things like, oh, our profits were up 10% last year, but we got a long way to go to get back to where we were 4 or 5 years ago. Or our revenue's flat. It's been flat, 2010, 2011. Last year, but we're holding our own. At least that's what matters. Or I hear things like, the economy, this is the year. Things are really going to pick up. Right. Our marketplace is really going to start booming. And when I hear these things, because of what I do in my profession, I ask, hey, so what are you doing that's different? And they say things like, well, we're working harder. Or we're trying to figure out this social media thing, this LinkedIn stuff, how we're going to leverage that. Or we're trying to do more prospecting. And it's a lot of fluff. Now, that's not meant as an indictment for any of those who are listening now, but what is, I think, a truth and a painful one for many, and it's one of those immutable things, is that anyone that's out there in a selling profession, that owns a business where they must sell. We all get the business we deserve. And we get the business that we deserve by our behavior. And we get the business that we deserve by changing our behavior. We're very fortunate at the Sandler Sales Institute that we received this international acclaim for the sales skills and the client development methods that we teach. But here's the irony. Our clients all tell us that where we help them the most is really expanding their prospecting activities, doing the things that they traditionally have had some discomfort in pulling off. And we know at Sandler that we can't do that unless we are actually providing the necessary structure for them to expand their comfort zone. If we look at economic conditions and where we've been, we haven't experienced the economic conditions that we went through, or I guess are still trying to recover from, since 1982. Then unemployment hit 11%. Someone might argue, yeah, but there's been other recessions. Sure, there have been, but nothing as deep as what we've been through. And some may say, well, yeah, but the dot-com, bubble that popped. But that didn't really have far-reaching effect on many different industries. So I encourage everyone who might be listening or watching now, think about what you were doing in 1982. I was only in the first grade then. But in 1982, again, unemployment 11%. Unfortunately, that was short-lived. But many people are out there today in the selling world maybe have never experienced anything like what we went through, and of course the recovery that we're in at this time. So I believe now more than ever is the argument for one to ratchet up their behavior, to expand their prospecting activities, to do the things that they've avoided doing in the past. to try to make an effort to become comfortable with that. And the only way that's going to happen is to just do it, right? And to also not just define the additional activities, but define those in specific and measurable numbers. You know, what is it that I or my sales team needs to be doing every day, every week, in specific and measurable numbers? Track it. And of course, if you're tracking it, you're just more likely to do it irrespective of how you might feel or what you might believe in any given day. Now, someone out there's listening thinking, oh, but this is Sales 101. Well, if it was Sales 101, then why isn't everyone doing it, right? So again, during robust times, it wasn't necessary. But now I believe, again, it's time to step outside. Everyone's just, if they're really going to grow their business, this is something they must do. By the way, this is what their competition's doing. So if they're remaining flat or if they're just maintaining the business at some consistent level instead of growing, that's not what their competition's going to be doing. So by default, they are not really remaining flat or constant. They're declining.
Now, how do you, if you are out there and you're marketing in a particular way and you have a certain number of prospects, just increasing the things that aren't working for you, is there some expectation that that would make it start working for you? I mean, when you talk about your sort of speed of discomfort, more of the same, sort of that old definition of insanity, if you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result?
Sure.
Or is the idea that, well, if I do so many presentations, I'll hit on so many of them, so if I increase the amount, that's a good thing and I should be tracking and saying?
Well, potentially, but what I'm really referencing is at the very front end. You know, increase the activity, do the things that maybe you avoided or did very little of when times were more robust. And as I stated a while ago, many people haven't changed their prospecting models. So they're still doing the same things they've always done. And yeah, you know, the cliche, keep doing what you've always done. Well, I turn it just a little bit, saying, if you keep behaving the way you've always behaved, right, then you'll certainly keep getting what you've always gotten. So the strategy here, expand what you're doing. Most people who are responsible for trying to go out there and find new business opportunities, they fall into those, just a handful of activities, maybe only doing one thing. They go out and they network a lot, or maybe they wait for the phone to ring, instead of becoming far more proactive and looking at the things that, again, that maybe they've avoided.
Let me ask you about the LinkedIn, because you mentioned LinkedIn. I think of LinkedIn as a way that sort of professionals might put something out there. So you see an article that you like and you post it up, or you write something and you post it up. But for sales, actual prospecting, how good is social media or LinkedIn specifically for that purpose?
And you know, we had this, I believe, somewhat of this perfect storm, if I can use that metaphor, when the economy slipped and the market started going down. At about this time was, you know, the social media buzz was really kicking in. So people didn't have as many business opportunities, or as many folks were raising the flag and saying, I'm interested in knowing what you can do for me. So they turned to social media. So they put up their Facebook pages, they went out on their LinkedIn accounts. All the LinkedIn gurus became very popular because they were giving advice on what to include or not include in your LinkedIn account, you know, what's going to get you the most views. And I believe you got to show up. I mean, you've got to participate. It's here to stay. But you know, I do workshops or I speak at events, and I will bring up LinkedIn and I will ask the audience, you know, how many of you have a LinkedIn account? And virtually every hand goes up. And then my next question is, how many of you can say, you know, and say fairly that you've got a piece of business for no other reason because you have a LinkedIn account, that you were there? Okay. How many hands go up? Yeah, right.
Not many.
Yeah, not many, right? Maybe one or two. And then maybe I will also ask the question, how many have a premium LinkedIn account? And essentially what I mean there, how many have upgraded the account, paid the money, so that you can use some of these search functions and the filtering capabilities within LinkedIn, which, by the way, I think are great. And again, very few, if any, hands will go up. So LinkedIn is a tool that I believe allows us to take our prospecting activities to a whole new level. No longer do we have to say to someone who is a client of ours if we're connected to them. We no longer have to ask them, hey, who do you know? We know who they know. The problem with LinkedIn, though, is everyone connects to everyone now. You know, their first grade teacher, whoever they play poker with on Friday night. So you've got to sift through all this, and that's why the filtering function of LinkedIn is so helpful. But there still has to be an offline component. And that means you get on the phone, you call the people, say, hey, I see you're connected to Bettina Lawton. Is this someone that I should be speaking to?
And the answer to that question is always yes, by the way. Yes.
And then get on the phone.
Get on the phone. Call Bettina.
Get on the phone and call. And, you know, I think one thing, again, will always remain true and solid. Professional selling is an old-fashioned business. That will never change. Technology will continue to advance, and those who leverage it in the world of professional selling, I believe they will have an edge. But it's always going to best be done on the phone, face-to-face, because it's about building relationships and establishing trust.
Well, what do you think about in LinkedIn? Because the feature that they added, which actually kind of annoys me, is that ability to endorse. I mean, the recommendation thing, somebody actually has to take the time to write it out and post it. But I have people who recommend me for skills, A, I don't do, or B, they're recommending me for things that, yes, I do, but I've never done it for you.
Sure.
And so that, and every day they say, so-and-so has recommended you, so-and-so, or so-and-so has endorsed you is the one. Are those things actually any use to people who are trying to qualify prospects or find prospects?
And they may be. I mean, this is a question that maybe is better suited toward the LinkedIn experts, which I'm not. Obviously, LinkedIn, like all of the other social media sites, are trying to do what they can to get mind share with those that are using them. So anytime you get a message in your mailbox that Ken Smith endorsed you for whatever, then obviously it's maintaining that awareness of LinkedIn, and there are connections there. Right. So, you know, again, not the expert there, but we do spend a lot of time with our clients teaching them how they can leverage LinkedIn. And again, that's with an offline component, looking at who someone is connected to, having a strategy of who they're going to connect to. I mean, I certainly get these invitations probably every day from folks that I don't even know who, you know, want to, you know, connect to me on LinkedIn. And if I don't know them, I'm not going to connect. So, but nonetheless, it's there. If it's used appropriately, it can be a great tool, but I remind everyone, it's just that. It's just a tool for us to leverage so that we can facilitate and enhance what we're ultimately doing to build relationship on the phone or face-to-face.
Okay. Well, we are going to be back for our final segment, our final strategies. Stay with us.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
before terrorists steal them.
Why did we learn all this?
My mother.
My son.
My sister-in-law.
Were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation, under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty.
And justice.
For all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list.
Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back for our final segment of Inside Scoop with Ken Smith tonight. We've been talking about upgrading your sales techniques in this marketplace. We want to make sure your business is as successful as it can be. And so that's what we've been spending our time tonight talking. We've got another strategy that we're going to talk about. It's called Redefine Your Reality. And we've got another graphic for people to take a look at. And man, I like it. Fact is, we've never met before. The guy says to reality. I like it. I like it. So what does that mean, redefine my reality? It's kind of like you just said, people get the business they deserve to get, and you know, you work on things. So now I have to redefine my reality for what?
Yeah, and to think of it like this, this is exactly what a number of business owners did after 2008. I mean, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, many of them have done just this. They redefine their reality. Now, more specifically, what do I mean by that? They reduce their office space. They move the office from a commercial building back to their home. They let go staff. They reduce their overhead. They sold off assets. They discontinued monthly services that they maybe had contracted for, maybe related to IT or marketing. So in effect, they redefined their reality. They said, I'm not this company that I once was. I'm now something less than that. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is they then begin to operate in that reality. This is how they see themselves. And because they now have a different set of expectations that are lower, which many people did, they then, of course, began to act and behave in a way that was consistent with those very same expectations that were part of this new reality mm-hmm. that they defined for themselves. For those who sell in their profession but are an employee, and they have a manager in a company, or maybe the owner is who they report to, similarly, their realities were maybe redefined for them. The business owner or management stepping back and saying, hey, we were once this $20 million company. Now, with this economic recovery, it's affecting our marketplace. We're not a $20 million company anymore. Mm-hmm. And so in the redefining of their reality, they also altered their expectations of the people that are involved in sales and business development. So the goals they had, the quotas, the objectives, they were lowered. And so now maybe someone that previously was expected to bring in $2 million worth of business, hey, bring in $1 million will be okay. And you know, for those out there who sell in their profession, who are an employee, I present this question to you. If you've got a quota, if you've got some goal that you're supposed to achieve in 2013, whose goal is that really? Whose goal is that really? And think about that for a moment, because it's someone else's goal in many cases. Management said, this is all we are expecting you to do. Mm-hmm. This is all you need to accomplish. David Sandler once said, if you can only achieve what someone else believes you're capable of achieving, you're much less than what you can ultimately be. And so what happens is, because management or ownership is defining the salesperson's reality for them, it creates a barrier of sorts. Mm-hmm. And so people then will spend all of their time and energy achieving just that and only that, and maybe not focused on anything greater. And this may help. Share a quick story with you. I met with the CEO of a biotechnology company mm-hmm. Shortly after the beginning of this year, back in January. His name was Steve, and Steve's company manufactures these agents that are used in cancer research. And Steve came in to see me, you know, trying to look at alternative ways that he might be able to grow his business, wanted to know if I might be able to help him and his sales team in some way. And somewhere in the conversation, but probably at the front end, I asked Steve, I said, well, what were your revenues in 2012? And he said, we did $4.5 million. I said, well, what were your revenues in 2011? And he said they were $4.5 million.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let's pretend you and I are having this conversation 5 years from now. What are you telling me? And he said, well, you know, I don't know. I mean, he didn't have an answer for that question. And then he came back to me and says, well, look, you've got to understand doing $4.5 million in this marketplace is pretty good. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. And I said, Steve, okay, you're saying that for some reason. And he said, well, yeah, you know, there's a lot of challenges. I said, Steve, what is the size of your marketplace out there? How much money is going to be spent in 2013 for the products that you sell, that you develop and sell? And he paused for a moment and he said, oh, Ken, it's got to be $1 billion. I said, what, $1 billion? He said, well, yeah, it used to be much more than that, but because of all of the cutbacks in research, and this company was one that sold into the private sector as well as the public sector. So, you know, there's a lot of cutbacks. And I said, but Steve, wait a second. $1 billion, you're doing $4.5 million only?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ken, that's pretty good. Now, what do you think? What do you think the chances are he's only going to do $4.5 million in 2013? So that's his reality. He's a $4.5 million company. So he'll spend all of his time and energy proving to himself that he's just that, and maybe not anything greater. So until a business owner or selling professional takes the time, takes a step back, and gets real and looks at what their reality actually could be, because the truth of the matter is there's a lot more business out there for everyone, irrespective of the fact that maybe there's not as much because we're in this recovering economy and it's had a lot of effect on different marketplaces. Still plenty of business out there for everyone. But while there might not be as much as there once was, there's still their fair share if they simply want more.
So your reality, you're redefining the reality as sort of like it's time to not be limiting yourself, not looking and saying, you know, you've done the sort of the downsizing stuff, as you said at the front end. Maybe you don't offer the same product lines, or you're now working out of your house instead of out of a commercial space. But you can't sort of let that, this is all I am, this is all I can be the reality, because that's just going to then make it. It sort of manifests what you're expecting. Sure. That's what you expect, that's what you get, right?
Yeah, and I don't know a business owner out there, and I'm sure there are those, but I personally don't know a business owner out there who does not want to grow their business, right? They want to grow their revenues, they want to enjoy greater profits. I don't know of a selling professional out there who would not say, I want to make more money. And of course, their income, and for most sales professionals, is tied to their productivity and what they're bringing in. But it goes back to what I was talking about, moving at the speed of discomfort. Going back, redefining what it is that they could be doing, should be doing on a daily and weekly basis that will in some way alter their results. And the reality is such now that maybe they haven't defined it because this is where they are, this is where they're destined to be, this is the amount of money they're making, it's okay given the marketplace. And boy, I wish I had $1 for every business owner that I've talked to who in some way had some spin on, but we're doing okay. Considering the marketplace, that's not bad.
Right.
So,
well, and now, because everybody, of course, would look today and say, well, we need to redefine our reality, but because of this whole sequester thing, particularly in Northern Virginia, where so much of the population does government contracting type things, that we shouldn't be out there saying, I can do better, I can do more. Boy, if I could just stay at my $4.5 million, that ought to be good.
Okay.
But that sounds like, what you're saying is that sounds like sort of justification for not moving beyond your comfort and not doing what you're advocating for people to do.
Absolutely. And so what I suggest, and of course, I'll give the very abbreviated version of this for the benefit of time, is to everyone out there who's listening, if you sell in your profession, if you own a business where you and others must sell in that business, take a hard look first and foremost at your personal goals. What's important to you in life? Why are you getting out of bed every day and doing what you're doing? And of course, that's different for everyone, but a lot of people haven't really defined that in specific and measurable terms. And then look at what you must do in your business to achieve that. You've heard this acronym, goals must be smart, specific, measurable, attainable but ambitious, relevant to one another, and tied to an element of time. I say they must be smarter, so we got to add to that our goals must constantly be evolving, and they must also constantly be reinforced. So they must be smarter. We must remind ourselves daily about why we're out there on a day in and day out. It's tough to do that if we don't have goals, and those goals should be stretches for us in some way. They should define something for us that we have not yet achieved, and that is the only way that we're ultimately going to be able to redefine that reality.
Well, and I want to talk about, because you've got a workshop coming up that I wanted to make sure that we mention, and I think I've got it here, so I'm going to turn it on.
Okay.
Because you've mentioned a bunch of things today, and we've sort of done this really fast, and I wanted to make sure people knew that, first of all, they can get a hold of you. So if they're sitting there taking notes, like I told everyone to do on Facebook today, and they're like, gosh, I really want to know that, you're open to having folks give you a call.
Sure.
And I'll tell them what the number is in case they don't see it on the screen. It's 301-590-8700. So, and then you've got this workshop coming up in a couple of weeks, and it says break the rules and close more sales. So what's that? Is this the break the rules, more of the move outside your discomfort zone? Are you going to tell people, because like one of the things when you mentioned managing expectations, when you were talking about poor Tom who thought he had a sale and then didn't have a sale, do you get into those kind of details with folks on how do you do this?
Yeah, yes, we will. And tonight we're talking, for the most part, about strategies or more, dealing with the conceptual roadblocks. Okay. I have this program on April 17th. We will be addressing very specifically what are some of the new tactics, the new approaches for being able to do that. In order to ask the tough questions, to get the information that one deserves, without, of course, rubbing the prospect the same way, we have to be able to manage their expectations right out of the gate. So we'll be providing the participants at that program what those approaches are, what they can take with them. It will be 2.5 hours of rich education, a lot of content. People will walk away with some things that they can really plug and play. They'll get a better understanding of what it is that they must do to be able to go up against the competition, how they can readily differentiate themselves from the competition and the eyes of the decision maker, and as well how they can shorten the sales cycles, avoid the pitfall of having to reduce their prices in order to make the business happen, how they can protect those margins, as well how can they leverage relationships more effectively to get more referrals. So well, hopefully people can.
I'm going to check my calendar, see if I can make it, and I want to thank you, Ken, for coming tonight. It has been terrific, inspirational, and hopefully everyone will do better at their business. So thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of the program.
Absolutely. Please down. Looks like the microphones are off. I'm sort of watching this one time. We didn't turn